Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today I want to talk about the genius of Ayurveda with the emphasis on gene and how these subtle, invisible genes are so powerful and how Ayurveda understood how powerful the most subtle aspects of the human body are. We now know that science tells us there's a thing called vertical transfer of information of our genes. You have a baby and your genetic material got transferred to your baby through a vertical transfer of that genetic material. There's another new discovery called horizontal transfer of genes, where the information is actually transferred horizontally, which means from, let's say, you spray a pesticide on a plant, and then the bugs on that plant, the microbes on that plant get mutated. And then you eat that plant. The mutated DNA from the bugs on that plant, which is your food, that transfers to the microbes' DNA inside of you. So we transfer that genetic material from the bugs that were mutated to the bugs inside of your gut. Those kind of permanent resident gut bugs, sort of like the armed guards at the castle gates, say, okay, this is weird. We're seeing a lot of this mutation. We better send a message to the genetic material and tell them, you better get ready for this new weird thing that's happening, and it's called the horizontal transfer of genes information that protects us, but if it's overwhelming, can actually be quite damaging to us as well. So it's very, very important. Even new research suggests that the foods that we eat can actually transfer that from the food, not just from the bugs, but the food, the genetic material in the plant can transfer its genetic material to our genetic code as well, as another sort of radar system to find out what's really going on out there, what new foods are out there, and what do I genetically have to prepare for, which makes you think long and hard, or twice or three times, about genetically modified food. If we start genetically modifying food and we send that genetically modified message to our genetic code, we really don't know what that will do. The cool thing about the human body is at least the master computer, the high ups in the whole program, they know that this is actually happening. And they're in their own way sort of preparing. That might be the good news, we don't really know, but we definitely know that the genetic material of a plant, which we've been eating for millions of years, is actually being transferred to our genetic code. So genetically, we are ready for that, which makes me think like things like wheat, which is, food we've been eating for millions of years. We have the capacity to digest it. It's a hard to digest protein. There are definitely issues with it. It's processed, but we have to realize that we have to strengthen our intestinal skin. In Ayurveda, they understood the microbiology. They called it krimni, which is the krimi are the bugs, the invisible microbes that they talked about inside of our intestinal tract and on our skin, and how important they were. And they talked about how to get rid of them if they were not the right kind or pathogenic or problematic, that you would actually change the environment of the host, of the bug, and also change the environment of the host, of you, of us, as opposed to just killing the bad bug, which I thought was really interesting. And one of the ways that we are just beginning to understand to do that is by creating an environment inside of our gut, or on our skin, or in our respiratory tract, or in our sinuses, or in our ears. All these areas are where there's a lot of microbes that tend to hang out. And they hang out in the kind of the warmer, wetter places. And definitely inside of us, there are microbiomes in our respiratory tract and our gut. And Ayurveda had all these brilliant, genius ideas to make sure that we had the most optimal environment for genetic exchange and the proliferation and support of healthy, beneficial microbes in all of these areas. For example, taking ghee or clarified butter in your diet takes away all the protein, all the dissolved dairy fat, and it makes it into just the highest source of butyric acid on the planet. Butyric acid is the #1 fatty acid that our gut microbiome feeds on. It supports the health integrity of our colon cells. It drives our immune response. It's like a most important fatty acids, and we have little microbes in our gut called Clostridium butyricum who literally make butyric acid, you could say ghee, for a living inside of our gut, which is why ghee is such a powerful agent, right? And also we have things like abhyanga, where in Ayurveda they would suggest to do daily massage on your skin, putting oil. And we know that the skin makes sebum. Sebum is a fat, the bugs eat the fat. We know that by putting oil on your skin, not only do you protect and dampen the sensory nervous system exposure, experience, or stress, or dryness, we also support an environment for the bugs to proliferate, really, really well. Ayurveda also suggests doing oil swishing or oil pulling in your mouth, where you swish oil to do what? Well, to knock out volatile sulfur compounds that are linked to bad breath, to change the microbiome in your mouth so you don't end up with lots of opportunistic bad bacteria like Streptococcus mutans. It actually supports a healthy environment of your mouth so we don't get as much plaque. It actually was able to match anti-plaque agents just by doing the oil swishing. So there's all kinds of things that Ayurveda, the genius of Ayurveda, was all about creating an environment, at least inside of us, that would protect us against any potential horizontal transfer of bad information. If your skin barriers break down, your outer skin breaks down, becomes dry, problematic. If your respiratory skin breaks down, becomes dry, irritated, inflamed, reactively producing chronic mucus or secretions of mucus, and or your intestinal tract becomes dry or constipated or loose or mucousy. These are all barrier breakdowns. And when those barriers break down, then that horizontal transfer of bad, possibly toxic, mutated genetic material can actually infiltrate in an overzealous way and cause real problems on the most subtle levels of our being. Not to mention, undigested foods, toxins, environmental pollutants to the tune of 400 billion pounds of toxic chemicals dumped in the American environment every single year. If we don't have a good barrier and really good digestion, we can't process those impurities, toxins, hard to digest proteins the way we should. And it's critically important that we support the digestive strength, but more importantly, the environment of the skin, which is what the genius of Ayurveda was all about. Now we have science to show that by healing the intestinal, by supporting the health integrity of the intestinal skin with good oil like ghee, abhyanga on your skin, oil pulling, putting oil in your ears, another technique that Ayurveda talks about. Even Ayurvedic bastis were oil enemas to support the integrity there. They were really, really all about the oil because the oil supports the proliferation of the good bacteria, and those bacteria provided that protective barrier to keep you safe. So the transfer of genetic material was done in an appropriate fashion to not overwhelm the body and keep the body as safe as humanly possible. Pretty amazing stuff. This new understanding of horizontal transfer of genetic material, not just vertical from parent to kid. It's actually transferred with through our gut bugs on a regular basis. Seems like they are definitely driving the program. It's important for us to realize how nature and Ayurveda understood and how nature supports the balance and the proliferation of good bacteria in a good environment and good protective barriers. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.